Hey everyone, welcome back to another Windows Wednesday. My name is Kayla Cinnamon. I'm a program manager on Windows, working on Windows Terminal as well as the Windows developer experience. We will not be having Scott here today, so it's just going to be me and a couple of some really awesome guests talking about the new Windows 11 sounds. So Windows 11 recently came out and it has a whole new soundscape that's completely different from Windows 10. And we have Josh and Savoy here who worked on the sounds and are going to tell us how they did it and the work that went into it and what it's like making sounds for an OS and getting into all of that. So welcome, Josh and Savoy.
Hi, thank you.
Uh, I would like to know first what you guys do on a regular day-to-day. Like, what's your regular job at Microsoft? And we can start with you, Josh.
Sure. I am a developer, a SWE software engineer, actually, but like I've been at Microsoft since I started part-time in 1997 and then, as a contractor, and then I went full-time in 99. So I've been there a long time. And we always said developer back then. So it's that one is stuck in my head for a long time. And when Ballmer gets on stage and screams it, he doesn't scream "swee, swee, swee." He says "developers, developers." So,
Right.
Anyway, I work on the shell. So the user interface where the taskbar and the desktop and the file explorer, all that stuff is the shell. Everybody knows that. So I'm a shell dev. I prefer UI, like pixels are sort of a favorite of mine, and also sound. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and I'm a program manager. I work a lot of places. I work with Josh on shell stuff and shell surfaces. I move around WinUI and the other UI platform stuff. Sound. It's hard to list. I think to enumerate the number of things that I actually get to be involved with on the team. But that's, I guess, just one of the awesome things about working in Windows is like the infinite possibilities. So maybe that's a cop-out answer, but it's the fast one.
Cool. Love it. And Savoy and I are on the same team, so I work with him all day, every day. So we're really close.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, aren't we all on the same team sometimes? Like, you and I work close. Josh and I work close. Kayla and Josh, they're in meetings sometimes together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so getting to the topic at hand. So Windows 11 recently came out, and it was a big deal. It made a huge wave, especially for us, and it has a completely different soundscape. So how did you get onto the sound project, and what was it like looking at Windows 10 and looking at the way Windows 10 sounds, and then going from there and making new OS sounds, and how did that happen?
Well, so I was on the I'll go first, I think, because I was started on it first, maybe. So we'll give the timeline will be continuous. So I was working on the Surface Hub. So that my sort of previous team was on the Surface Hub. I actually did, if any of you saw the demo where they like rotate the screen on stage, there's a Twitter, I'll link the Twitter thing because it's one of my cooler things I ever built. And the whole operating system stays still while like the taskbar and the desk and everything rotates around it as the device rotates. That was my like previous thing. But so while I was on the Surface Hub team, I just sort of randomly ended up in this on this like little work stream that was looking at new sounds for Surface Hub. And I was like, hey, I have a music studio. I'm actually sitting in it right now. And I've been playing music and doing recording pretty much all my life. And so I've always been interested in it. And so I kind of jumped at the opportunity, and I got to go to this guy's, the sound designer. He's got this cool soundproof studio, like in this different building at Microsoft. So got to go into this place, and there's like really, really cool toys. He's got like barefoot monitors. If you're into audio, you'll recognize those. They're like $50,000 each. And so it's really cool. And I'm like, hey, this is awesome. And we start going through the sound set for Surface Hub. And from that work stream, I got to know those people. And then when we sort of shifted gears and we moved the teams around and everything, and I ended up back on the Windows desktop, we're all sort of getting ready for this next release, which would turn out to be Windows 11. We didn't really know it at the time. Like, it was just sort of had a code name, like all of our releases do. And we're sort of going, had been sort of reorganized, and I was on kind of a new team. So trying to sort of figure out what we're doing, kind of going through the list of work that hadn't been allocated yet. And like, hey, is something we could do? And there was a sort of grab an oar kind of a thing, or of like, hey, can someone help out and work on this task? And it was sound, hey, we've got some new sounds that we want to get in. And I think maybe somebody got my name. Like, I think maybe I got I was forwarded it by somebody who knew my name from the previous work stream or whatever. But anyway, there was this task to get new sounds into Windows 11, and nobody was booked for it. And so I was like, hey, sweet. And this sounds great. And then I'll hand over to Savoy, because this is kind of like basically where we met.
Oh man, I was just getting lost in the comments.
Okay, no, that's all good.
Sorry. Where were we?
Yeah, so we grab an oar. I picked up the task. I was like, hey, sounds. And I said, hey, I put my new PM that I'm working with, this guy Savoy, who was really cool.
Yeah, so Josh and I think were, Windows 11 just becoming a thing, shuffled up, teams and projects and everything. And like, so all the stuff I was working on at the time just got kind of totally paused. And I was moved over to help in this new space with Josh. And we formed a team around a lot of the shell surfaces that we were looking at. And Josh and I were on the same team for like maybe a week. It was all the time we had to get to know each other. And I don't think we even met face to face until Josh called me and said, hey, you're the new PM for our team. There's the sound thing. I really want to do it. It would be super fun. Should be easy, but 10% chance this is an absolute ton of work for you. And I'm not really sure if it's going to go the easy way or like the 10%, like it might be a nightmare for you way, but what do you say? And I, actually, man, not to get like too far back in it, but like, as an attention deficit person, like audio matters a lot for me because it can, be an enabler for focus, but it can also be a massive distraction. And the Windows sounds before, the current Windows 11 sound set was designed around the Metro design language, which focused on minimalism and functionality. And if you think back to, the Metro actual visual style, it was hard corners everywhere. And they applied that even in the soundscape, where if you look at the literal sound waves, they were hard angle waves. They were, in a sense, and I mean, I don't mean to be too abrasive in saying it, but they were abrasive. It was kind of jarring, kind of jolting. And the sounds were such a distraction to me that I had muted most of them. And so when Josh waved this opportunity in front of me to go and fix system sounds and, make them something that could work for people like me, people who were, easily distracted by certain audio elements, I absolutely jumped on that. Like the risk of it being a costly job was worth it. And so I mean, also I should say this is like just a few days before like the Christmas holiday. So I don't want to say I wasn't thinking that hard, but I was definitely in, vacation ready mindset. And so I was like, absolutely, Josh. Yeah, let's go do this. This sounds awesome. Man, I think, Josh, should I kick it back over to you to talk about how we got from the sound set we were handed to actually having two?
Well, yeah, sure. Yeah, should we just keep rolling with the?
Yeah, keep rolling.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's
sure.
Actually,
yeah.
Is this the dark?
Yes.
The dark side?
Dark side.
Yes.
Yeah,
I was just going to ask about
spoilers.
This. Yes. Spoilers. yes. Let's go into it.
So like the light sounds were easy. We were just handed those. I shouldn't say light sounds yet. The sounds we had were easy.
Right. Yeah.
Those were ready. The designer had made them. All we really had to do is get them added. But the space Josh and I were in, we were looking at cleaning up some of the older assets in Windows. And man, I'm just going to turn it over to Josh to tell this because this really is his discovery. He deserves the credit here.
Yeah. So our team was doing, I guess, and we're sort of do theming now, but at the time we were kind of focusing on dark mode stuff, rejuvenation across the OS. So like anything that looked old, like freshening that up and newifying stuff, and doing better, like a deeper support for dark mode. And so we were thinking a lot about dark mode, and we were like, trying to find the gaps and just think about how the whole experience could be cooler. And it just kind of hit me. I was like, hey, we have this set of sounds, like, what if we had dark mode sounds? Like, what if when you turn on dark mode, and it's not just a completely different set of sounds, but what if we took that same existing set of sounds and like darkened them? And I know that's a big phrase, but I immediately thought, as a musician and a sound, I'm a studio guy, so I'm an engineer. I'm legit when it comes to the EQ and stuff like that. And I'm like, I thought I could make sounds darker. I immediately had, there's actually in audio, people talk about darker sounds, just basically having less, high end, less shimmery, sparkly stuff is sort of generally what darker means, like when you're recording. And so I could just sort of roll off the high end and we'd have darker, but I also thought it would be really neat to like really get in there with some cool signal processing and like some cool analog gear and like get some saturation going and try to like really think about what. So this is where my mind was on darker. I'm thinking purely in terms of like spinning knobs and just sort of making it sound a little darker. But then
kicking it back over to me.
Kicking back over to you.
Kicking back over to me. So Josh called me, and I think there's one detail. Maybe you mentioned it, maybe I missed it, but what Josh had pointed out was like he called me to say, "Hey, I got a pitch for you, dark sounds." And just by the name alone, I was like, "Okay, that sounds awesome." Like I'm already in. Just explain to me what I'm agreeing to again, because this is how Josh and I's relationship works. Is he just says like a cool title, I say yes, absolutely, and then I find out what it is later. But no, for real, Josh had said, like, look, I figured out that our audio assets are traversing effectively the same asset pipelines that all of our themable UI assets do. And so that was something that surprised me when I started to look at like older UI frameworks was, being in the WinUI world, I think of like styling and, themes, colors, etc., is effectively just parameters. But when you get into the legacy UI space, oftentimes we're actually transporting like PNGs. It just so many more UI assets than you'd think are actual literal like pixel PNGs that are transported through this pipeline. So Josh was like, hey, look, our audio is going through the same pipeline. We have this fork in the road where we, say, hey, light, dark, and we can route to different assets based on that. And so in theory, our original audio assets are the light theme assets, the light only assets that we get when there's no alternate for dark. What if we had an alternate for dark? And it was a good PM and asked a question, how expensive would this be? And Josh said, effectively, technically, engineering wise, like darn near almost free, which I know we say that all the time, but this time it was like actually real. It was pretty much free because the infrastructure is already there. We just didn't have any dark assets to point to. And I'm like, okay, well, it sounds free. The idea sounds cool, but like we need to actually have like a customer merited reason for doing something like this. And that's where the whole audio story, I think, really just boils down to a series of miracles of having the right people in the right place at the right time. Because the fact that Josh is a musician professionally and an engineer professionally working in this audio space was amazing. I happen to be our team's champion for qualitative customer research and do a lot of the like customer discovery stuff. And so when Josh handed this idea to me, we looked at the timeline and realized we had basically 8 days to was it less, maybe 6 or 7, to pitch this idea to our leadership, get sign off, approval, feature inclusion, all that stuff. We could effectively very easily have the assets. The engineering was pretty much already there. All we needed was a story and a reason for doing it. And so it's one of those things where we wanted to do it right, but we had to do it quick. And so Josh and I hit the ground running immediately with like rapidly iterated qualitative customer research, where I started trying to figure out, light theme, dark theme, like let's start there. Who uses it? Turns out dark theme users largely are power users. It's developers, IT, admin, gamers, graphic designers, enthusiasts, press people who write a lot, effectively people who spend, a significantly more amount of time at their computer than people who stay in light mode. That's a general delineation. And it was interesting actually to figure out why. It's often because light theme UI, while pleasant, it can induce certain strain over longer periods of time. So if you take, someone using light theme versus dark theme for 8 hours a day, the person who's in dark theme is going to ultimately experience like less eye strain. Also, the UI in dark themes are found to be less distracting. And so you really boil it down to it. And the people who are in dark theme tend to be people who are focus users at their core. They're people who are doing heavy tasks for a long time and want to effectively stay really in the zone with what they're doing. And it kind of harkens back to the problem I was having with, attention deficiency and the way the old sounds sounded, is that in certain ways they could be distracting. And so through actual, in-depth research, we found that when it comes to the new sound set, generally all users found the new sounds more pleasant and less distracting than the old sounds. But people who are in dark theme fairly consistently found the new sound set to be, what should I say? People who are light mode users liked it more than dark theme users liked it. Dark theme users would say, hey, this is an improvement, but I'm still feeling distracted or certain things. And so we brought this research back to Josh to say, hey, look, it's at the end of the day, people want to be less distracted by these sounds. They want them to respect that they're in a zone, and they want these, the notifications or whatever it is that the sound's trying to communicate to them to feel more like a hand wave, 30 feet off than a like, hello, right into the microphone that's, loud and in your face. And so knowing that, we were actually able to do some really interesting, I think, experiments and kind of studies to start breaking apart sound composition and ask, what makes a sound feel more passive, more distant, less loud, but still functional. And I'll kick it back over to Josh if there's more that he wanted to add. But basically, oh, you know what? No, there's one more part of the story I should add here before to tee Josh up for the home run he really did land, is that by the time we concluded this research, we brought it back to the audio designer who had done the original sound set. This was on a Friday. We pitched this idea. We had the research, and he said, this is awesome. I know what to do. You'll have a dark sound set by Monday, so go ahead and get a pitch with your leadership on the books. And so I spent that whole Friday just barking up my leadership tree, fighting for time because, we had 3 more business days until the close of all our feature inclusion pitches, et cetera, et cetera. And so I made a big deal. That's this is the best thing ever. You got to hear dark sounds. You got to make time to listen to it. It's all the work was there. We didn't know this, but Monday rolls around. Turns out that the audio designers left the company, and we're told, don't worry, replacement's coming. It's going to go smooth. Just wait it out till end of day. You'll have a new designer here to finish the work. But what no one knew, and this is, the spoiler, the plot twist, is that the new designer had their onboarding paperwork messed up because the Windows stuff was all very confidential. There are certain clearances you need that they just did. Something went wrong. So Monday, no new designer. Tuesday, no designer, and Josh and I had made a big deal about having this pitch Wednesday morning. So it was 5 or 6 o'clock on a Tuesday. We're down to, approximately 14 hours until our pitch, and everything's there except the audio assets. And, could we have pitched? Probably, but Josh and I had done all this work. We were all very excited. And what we knew we wanted was to have something real to show, even if it's a placeholder, to help the pitch land, because, to have something to show, make more than just vaporware can often make a difference. And so that's where Josh and I decided to actually pull an all-nighter, just rapidly designing these sounds based off all the customer research we'd done to know what should go into them. I'm a bit of an audiophile, so I had 13 different audio devices that I was rapidly testing the sounds that Josh was mixing in his Rock Band setup in his garage. And, Josh, I'll kick it over to you to add if there's anything you want to say about that creation process and that night together.
Yeah. So basically so I set it up in my studio. I got the full set of sounds, and I sort of laid them all out in a project, and I patched in the stuff that I wanted to do to affect the sounds. Because I think an important thing that we wanted to do was not completely change the sounds entirely, right? They should have the same. They should be, very similar to being the same sound in both modes, so that they're recognizable. USB insert and remove, you should be able to understand what's going on, regardless of having changed to dark mode or not. but within that parameter, you know, same song, but it can be played differently. So the main thing that I thought that would be the coolest thing to use on this is I've got this this thing called an analog heat by this Swedish company that's it's an analog signal processor, which if you're into audio stuff is analog is cool, you know. It's just one of those things. And it's funny because analog gear and tube gear and stuff is known for sounding warm. That's like a big thing. And warm and dark are generally sort of slightly synonymous in audio. So anyway, I knew that this would probably be the right piece of gear. And it has really cool filters and it does really nice, beautiful distortion. And basically I sat down with that thing and like, you know, got in the zone of darkened the lights and then I just played through each sound and I adjusted the parameters and I got a couple knobs going and then I would just play the sound and I hit play and then I would just sweep the filter and just completely by hand, I ran through the sound to try and get a cool effect for each sound. And I would get those done and then send Savoy that one. And then I'd do the next one. And then Savoy would be like, oh, this one needs more dark. It's not dark enough.
Oh, yeah, no, it was actually crazy where, like, you know, I was mentioning Microsoft has just mailed me a ton of laptops at this point. So I had all ranges of device speakers. I had high-end desktop speakers, headphones of all varying sizes. And, you know, it really, I think, hit me that there's something unique Windows has to do that most people working in audio production space never have to consider the way we do, which is how your sound comes across all ranges of device sizes and quality. So, you know, if you think about, if you think about Dr. Dre sitting there producing in his studio with Beat headphones by Dre, I mean, I know that's, you know, the commercial product and his headphones are probably thousands and thousands of dollars. But the point is, like, you know, generally professional musicians will produce for really high quality sound gear because they're producing for specific sound, and your job as the consumer to them is to, you know, afford the audio quality that helps you best hit, you know, that perfection they had in mind. But when you're talking about like laptop speakers, which are small to, you know, varying ranges of headphone speakers, desktop speakers, we had a responsibility to make sure that these sounds came through right, clear, distinct, meaningfully, beautifully, honestly, across all these ranges of devices. And so I was probably driving Josh nuts how I'd send back my test and I'd have one sound that comes off awesome on 12 devices. And like the 13th one, it's like in the middle, there's a tin can sound that we have to fix. It's kind of vibrant. Like it would just be so specific. And so that's, I think, honestly, just the only way to encapsulate how it took us literally this whole night across, you know, all the system sounds we were working with to arrive at this soundscape we got to. And by, you know, the early morning, our pitch was something early to me. I know 9 a.m. people are like, what? That's like, I've been awake for 8 hours by 9 a.m. Not me, like 9 a.m. I'm still sleeping for another few hours, honestly. But no, we rolled around. And one thing we knew we wanted by the early morning was a video showcasing how the light sounds came across in light theme versus how the dark sounds came across in dark theme with the corresponding UI. And so while Josh was wrapping up the final production, I went to work on this demo video to showcase it. And the video was still exporting by the time the pitch started. So I was frantically messaging Josh, like, Josh, stall with comedy. And that was, you know, Josh's third career. He hasn't mentioned his professional comedian because the number of times Josh has just so tactically said the right joke to get, you know, laughter for 2.5 minutes discussion. Yeah, we're now talking about Legend of Zelda for some reason. And like we have, you know, VPs in the room. We're like, I remember that game. And, you know, so it bought me just enough time. Like our demo finished exporting, I think 30 to 60 seconds into the pitch. So I was able to show up with it and then, you know, boom, here it is. Here goes our pitch for Dark Sounds. And honestly, the response was incredible. Like I still, you know, sometimes just have that sense of disbelief because there were people in the room. We have one quote, I'm trying to remember it verbatim, but it was to the effect of, these dark sounds sound so good. Let's throw light sounds out, make the dark sounds the new light sounds, and do something even cooler, even darker for dark sounds. We're just sitting here like, do not tell him that we did this in a single night. I realized I covered my mouth. Maybe my microphone didn't actually pick that up. But honestly, like, yeah, we told everyone eventually that this was the product of Josh and I pulling an all-nighter, but at the moment we were just like, hush, hush, like, let this be judged by the merit of the
Yeah, we
actual
didn't
product.
lie.
Not yeah, it's
We
like,
didn't mention
we
it.
didn't lie, but we just kind of admitted how we got there, because you never want something judged by the how it arrived, but its actual merit in full form. And so I will say the person who said throughout the light sounds, they were obviously a dark theme user, so like it made sense where their preference was, and we explained all that. We kept the light sounds, don't worry. But at the end of the day, we were clear, like, hey, Josh and I did this as a result of an all-nighter. So when our audio producer finally came, we're like, let's go revisit this and touch it up. And we did all kinds of explorations to figure out, like, well, Josh and Savoy maybe started us in the right direction, but what should this actually sound like? And at the end of that exploration, we really didn't change it. The producer cleaned up some of the samples and artifacts that we had in it. But really, like, we tried all kinds of combinations. And it was amazing how, when you alter something, it's like, okay, well, these are too indistinguishable from light sounds, or these are too indistinguishable from one another. These are no longer functional. They're too quiet. And I think it's really a testament to customer research. Like, let me get on my soapbox for a moment. So often, we're working in the tech industry, it's easy to look at steps like qualitative customer research and want to neglect it in a sense, because, you'll hear sentiment sometimes. It's like, oh, it takes forever. It takes too long. It's not going to help me. I already know what I want to do. Reason. But the lived experience Josh and I have at least had with it is, because we did customer research first, because we did it right, when it came time to make a product, we had literally all the right elements, right? The composition, the learnings that went into creating that sound, we had defined that so precisely that we were able to do it the same way the producer who came later was able to arrive at effectively the exact same conclusion and say, no, you guys got it. Like, that was the power of customer research and how it enabled us, because the fact that the dark sounds that are in Windows 11 production today all around the world that you hear came from one all-nighter, like a crazy, ridiculous all-nighter between me and Josh, is it just feels like, again, disbelief sometimes is a sensation that's very like, really. But yeah, it's I guess I don't know, cool. It's a testament to so many things, like the opportunity you have in Windows for influence, but also to experiment and to create. I don't know, I'm just so grateful for where we work and what we get to do, that and I'm gonna wax poetic on this too long if we just don't move on to the next step of the story, which is startup sound. But I'm gonna kick it back to Josh, because I think Josh was wanting to add something there.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it as a musician, it really felt like there's a thing called like the demo effect, where you have a first version of a song and it's got something sort of magical to it. It's the thing that made you want to keep making the song, and sometimes you go back and you try to redo it and like, now we'll do it for real. And you just never quite capture that original thing. And often it's best to just, maybe that original version is what the song was meant to be. I felt the same sort of thing with this. Like, I don't know, we just went into it so loose and open, and like, and it had to be done soon. And like, I was sort of inspired, and like, that it just felt like the same sort of thing. Like when we went back to like, see if we might want to redo it, nothing was better than that, which was fun.
And I think, Jason, when we did the Windows Insider podcast with Jen and Jason and co, I think Jason really captured it when he's like, yeah, sometimes you just have to separate yourself from the idea that the merit of something, that, the rightness of it came purely from the amount of time invested in it. Like, some $1 million companies are born out of boardrooms and thousands of hours of, very directed effort. But then sometimes $1 million startups are born in a backyard over, 3 college students enjoying like a barbecue together. And
right.
Not trying to say we're the college students enjoying a barbecue, but like, again, that's the power of Windows, is that sometimes you have investments that are years in the making. Sometimes you have magic happen overnight. And the fact that, we have a culture that incentivizes and rewards that kind of experimentation and can help see that come to fruition is, to me, I guess, the power of this operating system that, powers 1 billion plus devices. There's certain magic there that. Go ahead, Josh.
Oh, I was gonna say, it's a cool place to work. It really is. I mean, it's dumb, but it's not dumb. To think that like the stuff you work on, a billion people, or I mean, I don't know what our daily users is, but like there are over a billion Windows machines out there for sure. And like it's possible they're all on in one day. And like to think that a billion people see the pixels you did, or like if you screw something up, you made it a billion people sad, right? That's the worst way to think about it. But also if you make something cool and like, if even 10% of the people find that cool, that's a lot of people who are digging what you did. And so that is, I don't know. That's what gets me up in the morning.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Kayla.
Well, we're at time.
Oh, right.
Oh, we haven't even got to the startup sound.
We just blabbed right across all your questions. Sorry.
And that's fine, because I was just like, I hadn't heard the story and I didn't know like how you guys even came to like creating these sounds. And like I honestly forgot about dark sounds, and because I set my theme and then I leave it. So I definitely implore like everybody watching, put your machine in light mode and use it for a bit, and then put it in dark mode and then like listen to the difference, because this is just a really cool story. And I want to hear like, what did they hear in that meeting where they're like, make everything dark? I'm like, well, I want to know.
Let me say, we actually do get some bugs about that on ADO, where some people do that. They'll switch between themes and be like, I can't tell the difference. That was half the point, which is what Josh was saying earlier. Is like they need to sound similar enough that they're not, no longer recognizable. The differences are very nuanced. They're there, and if you look, maybe at a YouTube video, you can see side by sides that help demonstrate it. But to me, the real experiment would be try using your machine for a day and just notice your reflection, on the sounds. Were they different in dark mode? Were they like maybe less distracting, less, oh, I've got to respond to this now, and maybe more like, you heard it and could dismiss it, because it's really the feeling that someone walks away with that was the calculated difference.
Yeah, love it. Awesome. Yeah, so I'll have to have you back on, because we have so many more things to talk about, and I have the sounds that we didn't pick, and I think that'd be really cool to.
Oh yeah.
You want to save that for a later episode?
We'll save it because I want to talk about the new startup sound, and then also the sounds that we considered and then didn't pick, and then how that worked and all that stuff. But this was super awesome, and if you want to come back, please, you are very welcome to come back and talk more about this, because I think this is more impactful than people think, because it's part of the view of Windows, even though it's not necessarily obvious, because it's audio rather than visual. So
well, and there's a ton of comments here in the chat on the startup sound. So what a cliffhanger. We could leave that for next time.
Oh yeah, we can talk about that for another long time.
Honestly, the insanity of the creation of dark mode or dark sounds is just like copy paste. It's that insanity for the startup sounds. Like, Josh and I always have to give the disclaimer when we talk about this. Honestly, I think we forgot to do it at the start of this one, that the whole like sound thing for Windows 11 was just a miracle work stream, because audio is so hard. Like, we're working with very, very old audio pipelines in Windows, and just like the number of like technical challenges, like production challenges, there were just so many that it makes sense why this was a difficult work stream that was hard to pull off. And the fact that we did under the time constraints that we had to make Windows 11, new soundscape happen is makes for good storytelling. So I'll save those details for a later time.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks to both of you for coming on. I hope you had a good time watching, if you're watching, and we'll see you next week. We've got a Power Toys episode coming up. So thanks, everyone. See ya.